Now more than ever, humanity is being challenged to reconcile the fundamental aspects of our existence: God, nature, ourselves. All around us we are confronted with the seemingly irreconcilable tensions that exist between peace, nature, and God, or at least we can perceive them that way. From climate change and pandemics to rising geopolitical tensions, the connections that hold us together as a global community also seem to be tearing us apart. Sometimes true peace, nature, and God seem to be mutually exclusive goals or perspectives in our lives. Often we find balance in our life by observing the natural world. We can learn from nature that two forces are at play within us: the eternal essence of love and life, God, and the I-centered temporal personality being. We can experience everywhere the wonderful balance that the natural world and its creative forces exhibit. And we see how easily this balance can be undone or brought out of balance by mankind's actions. Why is this? Mankind has an inherent egocentric consciousness that separates itself from the universal nature of the divine, God, in which it actually exists. When we live in this state of ego-centeredness, only living for the pleasure of the moment, not seeing how our actions have a flow-on effect on the whole world, then we treat the earth and its inhabitants as our own laboratory, larder and dustbin, to use and abuse, not seeing that the mineral, plant, and animal kingdoms are linked to us, and we to them. We thereby lose the reverence for the essence of life itself, the living spirit that pervades all. Seen from a spiritual perspective, living in this way shows that we as humanity have lost control of ourselves and what our true purpose of life really is. When we see our individual life as separated from nature, ignoring the interconnections that keep this wonderful state of living in balance, we neglect the fact that the divine essence is in us, that we too are part of God's creation. However, if you feel the need for spiritual meaning and truth, you will feel the need to reconnect with the essence of life. We need a connection to the divine, and reconnecting with nature can help us. Furthermore, we can observe this connection throughout all of creation, from the microscopic to the cosmic, both in the external and within ourselves. When we seek to find meaning from the earth, the cosmos, and the natural world, we are really seeking a reconnection with life itself, with the divine, with God. If our consciousness opens to the potential of the divine within us, we break down the barriers that exist not outside of ourselves, but within us. And through a new consciousness, we can reunite with God, nature, and humanity in true peace and harmony. We are then no longer out of sync with nature. We lose the egocentric view that separates and divides, putting us above them, and we start to see the interconnectedness of all. We find God, the all, in the world around us and within ourselves. When we approach the idea of a creator, of a divine source of all things, of God, it is impossible to describe that in mere words. In fact, the universal teachings approach the idea of God through the terms such as unknowable and nameless, pointing to the very fact that from the perspective of human consciousness, no word or image can be created to truly portray the fullness of the Creator of all things. What is possible, though, is for us to comprehend our own existence, to understand the framework and parameters of the life that we experience, and place this into context of creation. How we fit into this, how we interact, and so how we form part of something much greater. The universe in which we live displays certain qualities, expressing certain laws that dictate the manifestation of life within it, including our own lives. For example, the cycle of birth and death, the law of karma, etc. From a spiritual perspective, these laws are seen as creating the principles, the outward expressions we know as mortality, perishability, impermanence. Yet these laws themselves remain permanent and are an expression of the divine. Hence we can see that although our manifested universe displays the qualities of impermanence, the divine permeates everything and ultimately animates it. Our perishable nature and the divine are interconnected. They are part of the same all. Throughout history, the universal teachings have pointed to man as a dualistic being, as being both mortal and immortal. Our personality is subject to birth and death. Our life system, however, the greater magnetic field of the microcosm, is not. It is divine and imperishable. If we accept that our nature order is impermanent and yet is still an expression of divinity, coexisting within the same space, then is it not logical to extend this understanding to man himself? Does not the universal language say that the divine is closer than hands and feet? It is within you. And does not this same language talk about the path of non-being, where the mortal has to sacrifice himself so that the immortal, the divine within, can grow. So, as a mortal personality, how are we to make sense of this interconnectedness between the divine and the undivine? And, more importantly, how should we act? What path should we walk to express the inner longing we feel to once again fully connect to the divine? All life's lessons have ultimately one aim: to lead us to the recognition of the true purpose of life. That purpose of life is letting go of the earthbound life focused on matter and everything belonging to it, and accepting the spirit soul as the true central principle by which our daily life begins to make sense and can be filled with purpose and joy. Friends, in this age, humanity is witnessing the collapse of its climate, religious and political systems, among other issues. It is not the end of the planet, but merely the end of the world as we know it. Humans now have the opportunity to see it is their egocentric perception that leads to this chaos. However, by an awareness flowing from a unity of head and heart, we can restore the link between body, soul, and spirit, and then discover the real purpose of our life that will allow the divine to once again take leadership and guide our lives. By becoming inwardly still and no longer lending an ear to our stream of thoughts, our cherished opinions or preferences, the inner other one is given room to awaken. If we focus our longing on that inner divine being that does not originate from our ego, but from the divine principle, we forge a link with the divine nature, here and now. A magnetic effect of attracting and repelling emanate from this longing. Attracting forces from the divine nature and making contact with them inevitably causes a process of rejection of what is not divine. This enables the new soul to grow as we piece by piece demolish our I-centered consciousness. This path does not mean strife, but acceptance of the divine force in us. However, at the same time, that we walk this path of eye demolition, the process of transfiguration begins. The dormant new soul is awakened, and we become in the world, but not of the world. But, friends, very consciously, for the world. These processes go hand in hand. The personality surrenders, as it were, the guidance to the other one, to the new soul. A silent heart is a heart in which the I has been silenced. This silenced heart can be opened to the forces of the divine nature, and with the flowering of the rose, that is, the awakening of the soul, the process of purification begins. We sincerely hope that all of us may find this silence within ourselves, so that for us, too, the beatitude from the Sermon on the Mount will be true. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God.